Welcome to the Mighty Oaks Show. Glad to have you with us today. And this is, for many of you, the 4th of July. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, you're probably watching it on the 3rd of July, but maybe celebrating at home, but not celebrating with fireworks or large gatherings. You're not doing that, but you're celebrating your independence, hopefully as an American, and listening somewhere else, perhaps on Mojo 50 on the 4th of July. And it's good to have you all with us, and we look forward to talking for a couple of minutes today. My name is Jeremy Stalnecker here with Chad Robichuax, and glad to be in studio and be able to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's nice actually being here, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good things going on, and we certainly are living at a crazy time, not just in our American history, because it's a crazy time in our American history with everything that's going on, but just in our global history. And it's one of those things that we have conversations about, a lot of people do, and we consistently are trying to figure out what it all means. And it's hard to know what it all means and where it's going to end up. We have an election coming up that may change some of these conversations. We have questions about coronavirus and how that's being managed. And then there's the racial issues in our country. So a lot of things happening right now. We're trying to figure it all out. And in the middle of all of that, we're celebrating a day like the one we're celebrating this weekend, which is
Independence Day.
Independence Day, right?
Yeah.
And in an ironic twist, we're celebrating Independence Day at a time when our government is telling us not to leave our homes or talk to people or have fireworks. But it's still a great time to celebrate and to remember.
It's something great to celebrate, and I think it's worthy of pointing out that despite everything that's going on, the conversation about race and inequality and all the some conversations are very just as peaceful protest and as people with real arguments, and then there's the other side of it where people are just stoking the fires and creating division and wanting anarchy, and then there's the political side of people wanting to disrupt the country for the sake of an election.
Yeah,
all that stuff going on, and in the middle of all that we have the virus, and you turn on the news and you can be really disheartened.
Yes,
but I think it's like I said, I think it's very noteworthy to say that on this day we should recognize that we are still the greatest nation.
Sure.
Not only on the planet, but ever on the planet.
Yep.
And we are, despite what people think and what people are screaming from the rooftops right now, we're the freest nation.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
We're the while there may be racism in our country, the least racially oppressed people in the world are in the United States, and we're the freest country in the world. And we know this. Those of us who traveled around the world, and I've been to about 60 countries during my life. Spent time. I've been to about 60 countries, but I've actually spent a good amount of time in about a dozen or so countries, and seen the difference between what happens here in America and seeing how people are treated, how oppressed people are around the world. And we know from statistics that about 75% of the world can't even experience religious liberties and religious freedoms like we do. And as you and I, as Christians, and being part of Mighty Oaks Foundation, a Christian organization, I'm thankful to be in a country where we could run a program that's faith-based. We could have religious liberties and feel blessed to be part of only 25% of the world that actually could speak about the gospel of Christ and not be persecuted for it.
So many good things have come out of this experiment that we're enjoying as Americans. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that's important to recognize, and it needs to be said from time to time, is that liberty in a political sense is a messy business. If you look at a communist country, or you look at a country that is run by a dictator, so often, because they have absolute control over the people in the country, there is what at least appears to be from the outside peace. It looks very peaceful because they have control over everything. When you look at a country like the United States, where we have a number of freedoms, right now a lot of folks are exercising their First Amendment freedom of freedom of speech and assembly, and all of these things are happening.
It can be scary to see people exercising their Second Amendment.
Along with the First.
With the First, yeah.
But when we see that, what we see is ensconced in our founding documents, the right to assemble, the right to speak your mind, the right to disagree with the government and other people that you may disagree with. And although it can be very scary for a lot of people, really what it reflects is the freedom that we have as Americans. And it can be scary. It can be something that we disagree with for sure on some of these issues. It can turn from a peaceful protest into a riot, which we absolutely disagree with. But the free exercise of speech, the ability to do these things, is something that makes us who we are as Americans. And it's not something to be afraid of, but rather to be celebrated, again, in its right context.
It's right, and you're right. I mean, while you and I know both celebrate free speech and encourage people to go out there and protest something they disagree with, and even protests for change, and when it comes to the time to vote and petition for legislation and change, they should do that. But when you talk about the lawlessness and the rioting and the looting and the burning down of people's personal property and those types of things, even I know it's kind of a controversial debate right now, but the destruction of these statues.
Sure.
You know, I think it's two separate conversations. One of what history should remain, what history should be taken down.
Right. And there's a real conversation to be had there.
That's one conversation about that. There's another conversation about an angry mob going tear down, making the decision for everyone right there and going tear down.
One of the things that makes America great is that we have due process.
Right.
And even our president has said this. Others have said this for sure. If you want a statue taken down, there's a process to redress your government with those grievances that you have, and go through the process of getting it taken down.
And that process has happened before. So it's
happened before, and it should happen.
It should. I mean, so it's not like that process. It's not like it's been shut down every time somebody's tried. The process has actually successfully happened, and but the way to go about it is not an angry mob marching in, sometimes armed.
Sometimes armed, and often.
And tearing down property.
That's right. Yeah. And as Americans, again, we have the opportunity, and when we celebrate freedom, when we celebrate, our 4th of July, Independence Day, whatever we call that, that's what we're celebrating, is that we have a country that allows citizens to really dictate to the government through process, election and other things, how we will be governed. It's a representative government, and that's something that is unlike most places in the world, and that we have that freedom.
Speaking for Mighty Oaks every year, I get the opportunity to speak. In fact, so if this comes out on Friday or Saturday, then on the 5th I'll be speaking. So tune in. It's kind of plug right here. Tune in to heightschurch.com, and I'll be doing my 4th of July message.
That's Sunday,
Sunday, 5th, So tomorrow, for our Mojo listeners, heightschurch.com, I'll be speaking on my 4th of July message, and I'm not sure if you're speaking.
Not this weekend.
Not this weekend. So every year it's kind of like treated as a veterans holiday, which is not a veterans holiday. It's an American holiday, celebrating our freedom. But I think the reason that we get to celebrate it is because since 1775, every warrior that's donned the uniform of the United States military that has fought to obtain those freedoms and then maintain those freedoms for us. And it's a day that I think here at Mighty Oaks, a day that we celebrate as veterans, and then also pay thanks to our military community who continues to stand in the gap to provide those freedoms to us.
One of the things I was thinking about this week in relationship to this holiday, and thanking those who stand in the gap, those who wear the uniform, those who continue to serve. And we forget this, but right now in places around the world, there are young men and women who are doing that.
Yeah.
We try to highlight this as often as it happens, but just about every week, it seems, a service member somewhere has lost their life, even in combat, in training. It happens all the time, and we need to remember that. But one of the things I was thinking about this week in relationship to that was the fact that young men and women in this country with so much perceived turmoil still sign up to wear the uniform, to defend their country, and really to serve the ideals of freedom. Why do young men and women, in your opinion, from your position, as you talk to folks and you get to know people, you were at MCRD today, and you often have the opportunity to speak to new recruits coming in. Why, in the midst of everything that's happening, do kind of the best of what we have to offer still sign up to wear the uniform and serve?
Well, like you said, I just came from MCRD. With those who don't know, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, which is Marine Corps boot camp. We have one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, on the best coast. It's I go there and I see these kids, and I say kids because of their age, but they're definitely young men and women that raise their hand and make that oath to serve our nation. It's a really good question because of the fact that we've been at this for 20 years now.
Right.
Been in the war on terror for 20 years, Iraq and Afghanistan and other conflicts around the world, and warriors that are signing up, they're taking a big risk. They know that they're probably going to deploy. I know because I have two sons, one who signed up in the Marines and one who's on the fence now between the Marines and the Air Force, trying to steer them the right way. But I mean, both of them know that they're making a decision. I know my son Hunter, he went to Afghanistan. He signed up knowing, okay, in this 6-year contract that I'm signing up, I'm going to deploy.
It's different than when you and I went in.
Yeah.
When nothing was happening.
Nothing was happening, right? And my son Hayden, that's a conversation I had with Hayden is, okay, you make the decision, you have to know that you're probably going to deploy. Right. You have to be willing to do that. And I think that's a conversation that probably most parents have with kids, and a thought that I would hope most of these kids have when they raise their hand to enlist in the military. And you ask that question that, I mean, it's, why would they do that? And I think because there's still a value in American culture, regardless of what it looks like. There's still a value of American culture that has a sense of patriotism, love for our country, and a kind of innate desire to maintain what we have. And the only way to maintain what we have is through the United States military, continuing to put on that uniform and go stand in the gap, on the shores of the United States or abroad, mostly abroad, and keep that fight away from our soil. And it just is incredible to me. I mean, we look at this generation and people our age kind of roll our eyes at this generation of video gamers.
Particularly those of us that have children. This age, yes.
But it just truly is amazing. I mean, and I was talking to the commanding general of MCRD today, and he was really just bragging about the intellectual ability and the just like overall like adaptability of this generation, and how how adaptable they are to recruit training. They're obviously they're coming from a culture much different than you and I grew up in. I grew up, going home when the street lights came on, and if I didn't make it home when the street lights came on, I got hit with something. but so it's a very different culture growing up, but they're going in to be the same thing we were, United States Marines. And so they had this big like adaptation in becoming a United States Marine, or becoming a soldier or airman or sailor or Coast Guard, Coast Guard Coasties or
Coast Guardsmen?
Coast Guardsmen.
Coast Guards people?
Coast Guards people. Okay.
We don't want to
leave them out.
You know what's funny about
our spacemen.
And our Space Forcemen.
Becoming those people, right? So that's it's amazing that they do that.
The Coast Guard's funny. We make fun of the Coast Guard a lot, but I mean the reality is they're out there hooking and jabbing with the bad guys every single day.
I seen that video of that guy jump off a boat on the submarine and beat the heck out of some drug smuggler.
That was the day I decided I will no longer make fun of the Coast Guard. Yeah, we have these young men and women who are serving. I think we're living at a moment in time where people are using phrases like sheep. We're all sheep. We're going along with this or that or whatever. There are a lot of what we would call maybe sheepdogs. A lot of people. And many of them very young in our society who want to stand up against tyranny and against difficulty and the most difficult jobs. And we were talking about this briefly, and this is not about the police, but even the police officers among us who
want to be a police officer right now.
They're standing in the gap. A good friend of ours was here in our office yesterday, Gabe. And he's a police officer, and talking about the things he was going through, and how there's just still such a sense of pride for these police officers to do their job, and young people who still want to be police officers because, in spite of everything, they want to stand in the gap for those who can't, and it's the same in our military. It's an incredible thing. It's an incredible thing. When we celebrate, a weekend like this, and we look at the liberty that we enjoy, in large part, that's what we're celebrating, is folks like that. And that should give us all a lot of hope.
0.45%. Only 0.5% of our population joins the United States military right now.
Which is incredible.
And it's incredible that we still have. I'm so proud of our young men and women that do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of fringe benefits to the world for the freedoms of the United States. I think we forget this. You mentioned it earlier, but it's so true. The fact that we as an organization are able to do what we can do because of religious freedom in our country. but then we have, as a nation, really exported freedom in places around the world. And I'm not ignorant to history. I understand what people say about what we've done, and some has been good and some has been bad. But even in the last couple of weeks, we sent a military task force to, I believe it's Nigeria, where religious genocide is taking place, to put an end to that. And Americans, again, around the world are doing this every day. Mm-hmm. And it's because of what we fundamentally believe as Americans, as it relates to individual freedoms and individual liberties. And it's an amazing thing that we can participate in that. So freedom is not just about here, it's about everywhere people are oppressed.
Yeah, one of the things we're talking about was the fact that we run Mighty Oaks programs to serve. I mean, obviously, for those who follow us, there's a big problem in the military community after 20 years in the war on terror, and then those still struggling from wars like Vietnam. We have over 20 suicides a day. The divorce rate's still at a all-time high in the military, especially among combat veterans. And those being diagnosed with PTSD and dealing with daily struggles like anxiety, depression, and just overall hopelessness. And with this problem that presents itself to the military community, Mighty Oaks Foundation and organizations like ours are able to bring a very tangible solution to those problems through faith-based treatments. And it's because of the freedoms that we have in our country that we're able to do that. There's most countries around the world, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that, most countries around the world would not allow a program like Mighty Oaks to serve their military warriors. And that's unfortunately a sad fact. There's a group of Christians in Switzerland that reached out to me last year, and we helped them write their military. We didn't help them write. We gave them information and materials to put in their military Bible, because they didn't have a military Bible. Like they talked about. Everybody talks about Switzerland. Oh, how great! I hear a lot of people talk about how great it would be to in Switzerland. Yeah. Well, this is these people are calling me and say they're not allowed to have. They don't have a chaplaincy in their military. And they would never be able to have a program like Mighty Oaks to serve their warriors.
They make those pocket knives, though.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I can pick my teeth. If you ever need to pick your teeth, you can use a pocket knife. But if you ever need a solution to life's biggest problems,
you're not going to find it.
You're not going to find it, right? And but we have that here.
Yeah. We forget the blessing of freedom, but also the responsibility of freedom. As and I think we've enjoyed it. As you consider the responsibility that we have as a nation of people who, I'll say at least historically, have valued liberty and freedom and independence, what is the responsibility that goes along with that?
I mean, if you value anything, you need to do whatever it takes to maintain it,
to protect it,
right? And I mean, anything in my life, whether tangible or not that I value, I want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And so if you value the freedoms that we have in our country, then you need to make steps in your own individual life for the sake of our nation to maintain it. And the only thing that's a threat to the freedom in America is ourselves, our own people. And if America is ever not a free nation, it's not going to be because some foreign entity came in and took over. It's because from internal within, we forfeited it. We gave it up. We stopped seeing the value in it. We were too naive or overlooked it, and didn't treat it with the value it deserves. And then one day we turn around and it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
We, I think, forget the cost of the freedom as well. History is something that's not taught in schools. I'm sure it's taught in schools, but it's not taught like it was when I was in school.
No.
And the high cost in human life to gain and then maintain the freedom that we've enjoyed. And when we forget what it costs, we don't value it as much, and that's when we see it go away.
Right. It's just like giving a small teenager a brand new Ferrari.
Right. They're not going to value it.
He's not going to value it, isn't going to respect it, but he has to work his whole life till he's in a midlife crisis to buy that thing.
Right.
Keep it shiny and.
You when you work to save your pennies to buy that beat up car, you really value it. Yeah, that's right. It's a great thing, even in the midst of everything we're dealing with, to be able to stop and thank God, number one, for the country that we have the privilege of being a part of. Number two, to reflect on what it's cost, and then I think third, to really redetermine or recommit to preserving whatever cost that is, the freedoms that we enjoy. It's not just us that needs to enjoy it.
Right.
It's people around the world that need the United States to really be that, that beacon of light, as Ronald Reagan said.
Yeah, I share a story in my book, An Unfair Advantage. It's in the opening chapter, and it's about when I was in Afghanistan, 2004. So it was early on in my time in Afghanistan, and I was invited by one of my interpreters who became one of our teammates, very close friend of mine, and his name Bashir, which is not his real name, but I wrote it that way in the book, and I'll say it that way here. But I was invited to his house, and the reason I was invited to his house is they were having a party for the 2004 election. If you remember, President Bush.
American election.
Yeah. President Bush versus John Kerry. And I thought it was kind of strange that they were having an election party, but I wanted to see the unveiling of the election.
Right.
You watch the results roll in. And when I went there, I was just blown away because there's like wall-to-wall people. They're in there. There's food everywhere, like food laid out. It's just a giant party. The only way I could describe it would be like if you had like the crazy friends that do that Super Bowl party every year, right. And they had all the food in there. It was that kind of party, and I've never seen anything like that in America through any presidential election, and I remember watching. They were glued to the TV watching. I couldn't believe their suspense in it. And then as the results rolled out, and President Bush, obviously remember President Bush won. They were cheering. They started dancing, like having like festival dancing in there in the house. And I remember thinking like, how could these people be so excited about a U.S. election? Why would it matter to them so much? I've never seen American so excited about the results. And Bashir explained it to me that they were so in fear that John Kerry would be elected and the U.S. troops would be pulled out of Afghanistan and the Taliban would come back in. And that was like that moment for me was like really like life maturing moment to recognize like how important America's role was to people we don't even know around the world. I mean, these people that most people in America would never meet a family like that in a small town in Afghanistan, or other ones that I haven't met in places like the Philippines or Syria. All these people around the world. You were in Ukraine, like all these people around the world that we think that something like our election wouldn't matter to them, when it's literally a life or death to them. It affects their everyday life, and we in this country had the freedom to be able to go out and cast a ballot and vote for who is going to be our leaders, and I think so many times we are naive to it, the importance of it.
Take it for
granted, and just totally overlooking the fact that it doesn't just impact us and our personal lives or our nation, but America being strong or being weak, or America's policies impact people all over the world every day.
We treat it like it is about us, but even if we go back to the beginning, our founding fathers, I forget the numbers, but the majority of those who signed the Declaration of Independence were dramatically impacted by the Revolutionary War. Mm-hmm. Several lost their lives, many lost their livelihoods, their homes, their businesses. Some would go on to become politicians, but what they were doing was not about them and theirs. Mm-hmm. Had they complied with what the British government wanted them to do, they would have had relative peace. Mm-hmm. But what they were doing was looking down the road and saying, we're going to do this thing. It's going to cost us tremendously. Some of us will lose our lives, but we're going to do it because other people need us to.
Yeah.
And that's really what freedom is about.
I think even though they didn't all lose their lives, I think every single one of them that signed that paper signed it knowing that they very well could lose their lives for signing that, and they did it knowing that, because the price of freedom was worth it to them.
And they were thinking about generations to come and people's around the world that would benefit from that. We should never take our freedom for granted. This year, maybe more than ever. Yeah, for sure. As you celebrate this weekend, please take some time to enjoy yourself. Of course, we always say that. A lot of veterans say, be very careful because there's a sensitive veteran in your neighborhood. If there's a sensitive veteran in your neighborhood, send them to us. We'll help them out. I think.
What do you mean to pop the fireworks?
Pop the fireworks.
Oh gosh, pop your fireworks.
Have a good time.
If you're a veteran and trust me, I get it. Like loud noises may bother you. It made you startled. Put some earplugs in.
Right. Right.
Put some headphones on.
Right.
Don't try to ruin everybody's weekend with making a spectacle out of yourself.
That's right.
Just let people celebrate freedom.
Let people celebrate, and I hope that you will. And if you have a veteran or someone in your neighborhood, talk to them and then invite them over to your party. They'll appreciate it.
Exactly.
But celebrate with your family. This is what we have the opportunity to do, and many folks don't. But beyond that, take some time to talk to those that are in your family, those that you have the opportunity to influence, and help them to understand the cost of freedom, the importance of maintaining the freedom, and what that looks like going forward. We need that now more than ever. And hope you have a good weekend doing that.
Yep. Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
God bless.
And God bless. Have a good week. And we'll see you next time. If you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, do that. Go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section. We'd love to get that from you as well. For those of you that are listening somewhere else, thank you for doing that. We'll see you next time.